Two women who say their ex-husbands misled divorce courts about their wealth have won a Supreme Court battle to have their settlements increased. North Londoner Varsha Gohil and Alison Sharland from Cheshire say their millionaire former spouses lied about their finances when the deals were initially made. Legal experts say the ruling could pave the way for renegotiating divorce settlements. Neil Dring's an associate at Stowe Family Law and joins me via video link this lunchtime. Thank you very much for joining us, Neil. Just how significant is this decision?
Well, it could be very significant going forward for wives, and particularly wives who their husbands may have failed to disclose substantial assets. I have to say, this has been the law for about the last 30 years or so. In these two particular cases that were dealt with in June, for some strange reason, the High Court and the Court of Appeal upheld previous hearings where it had been decided that a husband who had failed to disclose assets that he had effectively could get away with it. In the light of his failure to provide information about his finances, Ms. Gohil accepted a settlement which was far less than she should have got. And when she realised that he owned substantially more assets, she tried to appeal against it. And for reasons nobody really understands, in fact, the Supreme Court said it was an aberration of the previous courts. They upheld the previous agreement. The Supreme Court has said today that effectively husbands can't get away with lying. They have to make full disclosure. And if they don't, they're going to have to stand the cost of it later on.
How much is this a ruling which will only benefit the super rich?
Well, it'll not only be the super rich. It's fair to say that it will only be in cases where the outcome will have made a difference. In these particular cases, these husbands were millionaires. Those are the sorts of cases that tend to get in the law reports. Those are the sorts of cases that the press tend to look at. But there are other cases which are much lower level assets, but it still needs to be an amount where the difference between what was disclosed and what should have been disclosed would have made a difference to the outcome. If we're talking about a few £1,000s here or there in a bank account, that's probably not going to be relevant. But if we're talking about tens or £50,000 or thereabouts of assets or shares that weren't disclosed, that may have made a difference to the outcome. And so, yes, this ruling is going to put everybody on notice that in future husbands will have to beware and make sure they're making full disclosure. And if not, they're going to be held to account.
What message does this send out about divorce settlements in this country?
I have to say that I think in the round, it doesn't send out a bad message at all, because most divorce settlements in this country are dealt with properly. Most lawyers, most family lawyers certainly will advise their client and give them clear advice that they must make full and frank disclosure, and most people will actually do that, because again, most people will be advised by their lawyers that if they don't, they're not going to get away with it. In these two high-profile cases, which is always good to have these cases every now and again coming along, because it reminds us all that we have to do those things. But for most cases, it's not going to make a great deal of difference, because actually most people are honest and most people do make disclosure. But where that doesn't happen, these cases underline the fact that you're not going to get away with it. And it's useful always to have forensic accountants on hand, either external accountants or, as we have, in-house accountants who can check the disclosure made by particularly wealthy husbands to make sure they're making full disclosure, and to ensure that if they don't, that is highlighted and brought out. But in the main, it's not going to have an effect week in, week out on cases, except that now husbands and that the lawyers for husbands will be on notice that they really do have to get their act together, and they have got to make this disclosure. So we may find a greater willingness to make sure that's the case.